All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to turn TikTok on as well. As always, go to the effects and make sure I'm not looking orange. TikTok loves making me orange. There we go. Go live. Fly, be free. All right. Hey, everybody. Woo! We are live on both. Once it starts, because I know there's a little delay here, tell everybody where you guys are from, please. Let me see who my first TikToker is, if I can find my glasses. I dropped my glasses somewhere. Phil, I think you're the first person to come on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My glasses. Where did I put the glasses I like? I don't know. Well, I'll use the glasses I don't like today, I guess, if I have to. It's okay. We'll survive. Hey, everybody. Yep, give a little hello from where you're from. Hey, Toby. We sort of take a minute for folks to join, and this way we sort of let you guys introduce yourselves at the same time. Just say where you're from. This way we give sort of a minute or two at the same time. Let people sort of come in. I'm still going to look for my glasses. I swear to God, I've become my mother. I'm already losing things, but I'm losing things like multiple times a day, just like my mom does. I have my glasses I like to use for these broadcasts, and of course, who knows where I put them. All right, I'll stop being mom. Anyway, who else we got here? Victoria, Arizona, Mars. I always like the Mars people. My day was okay. Little doctor checkup. Nothing bad. My little nose thing they had to do. It hurt like hell, though, which they didn't warn me about. I love when the doctor doesn't warn you that something is going to be excruciatingly painful. I thought I was just going to get checkup, and I walked out of there like, ugh. Anyway, we're just doing our quick introductions. Yeah, I know. Glasses on my head. Good point, though. No, I even checked here. I thought maybe I put them by my mic. No, you know, the thing is, they're like reading glasses. I mean, these are my reading glasses. These are my, I don't think they're as attractive reading glasses. I save my other, I have my pretty ones that I save for you guys. They're still cheap. They're all from Costco, but they're nicer looking, so I prefer to use them, but God knows where I put them. It's okay. Oh, but I found my second allergy inhaler that I had lost. It's such a great day for memory loss. Hey, Australia. All right, guys, we're taking another second for everybody to say hi, where you're from. This is good. We got a good TikTok crowd. It's always the TikTokers that come in a little more slowly, it seems. So, hola, Puerto Rico. ¿Qué tal? All right, guys. You know, I'll just jump in. As always, thank you for joining us. You can, how do we do this? I will do the news first. Today might go 25 minutes. We'll see. I'm going to try to cut some stuff, but obviously a lot of news today. The big news today is the massacre in Bucha. We'll be talking a lot about that, the response from the U.S. and the allies, what the Russians are doing. The questions, when we get to the Q&A period afterwards, I hang out till like quarter after the hour of the next hour. So in an hour and 15 minutes, I will be here until then. I'll take in your questions. What would be good is on TikTok, there's some kind of question feature. I know how to access it on my end. I don't know on your end. So submit your questions there and I'll just scroll through them. And on YouTube, Facebook and everything, I can't get to you guys, but I can, actually that's not true. I can see comments on Facebook. They come through here if you're on Facebook. But in any case, you guys can leave questions here for the YouTube, Facebook, etc., folks. And as always, if you submit a super question, I will get to that first. I'll jump to that as the next topic of discussion because that's something you guys pay for. It also is a donation to me and my work. So thank you, because I am doing this full time now. And I'm going to do it full time for the foreseeable future and maybe even afterwards. Turn this into a kind of a fun ongoing news thing if we can. I'm going to adjust my TikTok cam. Good enough. All right, let's jump in though. So the big story is Bucha. Bucha, as you guys know, is the town more or less northwest of Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. The Russians just got shushed out of there a couple days ago by the Ukrainians. Larger story, you know that the Russians have not been doing well in Ukraine. They had to pull out of the north, so they had to stop their attack on Kyiv. I mean, they're still throwing missiles at Kyiv, but they had to stop their land attack on Kyiv, the capital. They pulled back, and as they pulled back, Ukrainians and the media have been able to go into the towns and see what happened. Well, one town in particular called Bucha was utterly destroyed. People, I mean, you guys, I assume by now have seen the images and the videos and thank you. I still will try to call out the TikTok little gifts you guys give nonetheless. Thank you for that and the roses. the journalists and the military came in. They found 20 dead bodies on the street of the main, one of the big streets as you come walking in. Some of the guys, one image, I saw the pictures, but I also saw the video of the guy that had his hands tied behind his back. They shot him dead in the mouth. They're finding dead bodies in their backyards. They found mass graves. Horrific. Caused a lot of countries of the world to react today. We will get to that. One family, just to give you some stories, and I'm going to read you a couple New York Times pieces as well, because they're very good, and I think it's important for you guys to hear this stuff. So one family came home to find a dead body in their backyard. The hands were tied, civilian clothes, shot dead. Again. And the importance there is meaning if your hands are tied, you're not fighting, you're already a prisoner. There's no reason to execute you. That's a war crime. You're not allowed to, even if the civilian were a soldier or anything else, you can't shoot him dead. That's a war crime. And of course, real doubtful that these guys were soldiers. These were civilians. The New York Times, I want to read you a quick little New York Times story that was literally it was very short, but it was so poignant that I copied it. And I want to read it to you guys. One sec. My sip of water throughout. Listen to this. So the New York Times, the reporter writes, for the past 3 days, my colleagues and I have been walking and driving through the streets of this town, meaning Bucha, following the Russian army's retreat. We'd heard reports of possible war crimes, and we had set out on a Saturday to see what the Russians left behind. We passed a number of bodies throughout the town. Locals flagged down our cars and directed us to other bodies. While en route to investigate on Monday, a colleague of ours directed us to one home in particular. We walked into the backyard of that home, and that's where I saw the bodies of Sergei, his brother-in-law Roman, and another man on the ground. Sergei had a blue cloth over his face. Roman had a gunshot wound to the head. The third man, a civilian, was unknown to the neighbors who filtered into the garden. They didn't recognize him. Moments after we arrived, Tatiana Petrovna, 72 years old, a close relative, walked into the garden in tears. She had brought yellow flowers, some cookies, and poppy seed crackers. She placed them crying beside Roman's body. She called him Romanchik, little Roman. Ira, the wife of Sergei and the sister of Roman, arrived later, moving between the garden to the house and speaking with neighbors. Neighbors told us Sergei had stayed in Bucha to look after his dogs. Not far from his body, we found 2 dogs, dead. They had been shot. That's the story. It's a quick story, but I read this. Even reading it to you guys now, I read it and I was like, oh my God, the Russians shot the guy's dogs. They killed the guys and then they killed their dogs, or vice versa. As a pet owner, obviously bad enough anyway, what's going on, but that just the inhumanity of it. Actually, Zelensky made an interesting comment earlier today. I think it was when he was in Bucha, or it was in his speech last night. But he said, we Ukrainians are known for treating animals like humans, or better than humans. And he said, and the Russians are known for treating humans worse than animals. It was an interesting quote, because the Ukrainians, a lot of the exodus of civilian refugees, you see them carrying their pets, and apparently Ukraine is known. It is a especially sort of pet friendly country. I would almost say like France. France, interestingly enough, is a very dog friendly country. They love their dogs in France, and apparently Ukraine is very similar with pets in general. Meanwhile, Russia. Now, you'll be really surprised to hear this. Russia is claiming that they're the real victim of Bucha. And thank you for that, by the way. They're the real victims here. First of all, they say everything's been faked. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Russia says the bodies were placed only recently on the streets after all the Russian units withdrew completely from Bucha around March 30th. So they say the bodies were all placed in the last 3 days. The Ukrainians just found bodies and put them there, right? Well, again, I'll get to that in a minute, because we know it's a lie, but it's always good to disprove the lie, and I'm getting to that in a second. The Russian, they just crack me up. They don't crack me up, they infuriate me, but the Russian authorities have now threatened to prosecute anyone who publicly blames Russia for the mass murder in Bucha. I'm kind of like, you know what? Bring it on, boys, bring it on. Russia has called an emergency session of the UN, the United Nations Security Council. Thank you for the origami. Because Russia is under attack. all of the people holding Russia accountable for its war crimes are actually attacking Russia. And Russia needs to have an emergency meeting of the UN to deal with the fact that it's being harmed by all of the people broadcasting its crimes. Kid you not. Let me read you this paragraph. This just takes the cake. Allegation, this was from the New York Times as well. Allegations of Russian war crimes by Ukraine and its allies. God. Allegations of Russian war crimes by Ukraine and its allies, meaning Ukraine and its allies claiming that Russia has committed war crimes, I don't like the way this New York Times wrote this story. Allegations by Ukraine and its allies that Russia has committed war crimes could hamper peace talks. Thank you for that. And so could attempts to suspend Russia from the United Nations Human Rights Council, which is something America said we're going to try to do. Quote, this is unprecedented, and this will not facilitate or encourage or be helpful to what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, like, if the UN ambassador could do a better impression of a drag queen, I can't think what. But to literally have the nerve to sit there and say, if you criticize us for our war crimes, this is not going to help the peace talks. I mean, you know what isn't going to help the peace talks? The fact that you're literally intentionally murdering women and children. I mean, men too, but men, women, and children across this country. The fact that you bombed a theater that had the words children written outside of it, right? The fact that you bombed a maternity ward, knowing it was a maternity ward, that's not going to help the negotiations. But the two little quick points, and I know we know they're lying, claiming they didn't do it, and these are fake, but I still think it's important to have the facts because, you know, their people are out there lying left and right. I mean, my TikTok folks really know it. The Russians are just, you know, their agents or whoever they are gone nuts in my comments on TikTok. But two things. First, the Times of London, very esteemed old newspaper, reporter there had somebody examine the dead body, close-up images of the dead bodies. Sorry, thank you for that. Always weird thanking you guys when I'm in the middle of the worst topic ever, but I do appreciate it, TikTok folks. The Times of London had a reporter get the high-resolution photos and images of the dead bodies in Bucha. They then showed it to a forensic expert, somebody who's an expert in death in dead bodies. And what they found was the decomposition of the bodies showed that these people died while Russia was there. They did not die in the last 3 days. Now, New York Times took it one step further. The New York Times went and checked satellite images. Listen to this. Satellite images refute Russia's claim that the killing of civilians in Bucha occurred after its soldiers left town. What Russia found, and I didn't want to copy it because of copyright reasons, but what the New York Times, found, they showed two photos, and they showed around March 10th or so, maybe March 9th, and how the town, the main street was empty. You know, there were cars on it and stuff, no bodies. March 10th, all the bodies were on the street. And they even compared it to the photos the reporters took in the last couple of days, like showing how the satellite caught the same white car and black car and body as you see, like this. It proves that the bodies have been there for weeks, which means when the Russians were there. Again, I know, we know it's true anyway, but it still helps to prove this because, well, it's going to matter, especially if we can ever get them in a court of law. Other just Russians behaving badly stories. I'll tell you this one really quick, but the residents of Nova Basan, which is east of Kyiv. Thank you again. I do appreciate all the TikTok gifts. You guys are always extra special about that. Thank you. The residents of Nova Basan were occupied by the Russians for 25 days. Another town that the Russians had to give up when they were basically beaten by the Ukrainians and had to pull back. Read you a quick paragraph. Mykola Dyachenko says he was among some 20 men who were held prisoner by Russian troops for 25 days during the occupation. He said he had been put through what he called a mock execution 15 times while being questioned about local Ukrainian territorial defense forces and ammunition stored in the area. His interrogators fired an assault rifle over his head during the questioning, he said. His eyes were bound with sticky tape, but he heard and felt the gunshots above his head. It was psychological pressure, he said. This is kind of great, though. They were trying to kick out of me information that I was not sharing. You could just hear it's like Ukrainian, right? Going, yeah, they were trying to kick the information out of me, but I was not sharing. God bless this guy, but I can't even imagine. So the response I'm underwhelmed personally by the response from the West so far. There's been a lot of harsh words. As I said, the U.S. wants to kick Russia off the UN Human Rights Council. I mean, I'm like, okay. No, I mean, that's fine. They shouldn't be on a Human Rights Council, but give me a break. I feel like that's cute. It's fluff. It'll piss the Russians off, but it's fluff. Europe has expelled Russian diplomats. Thank you for that, Angie. I think it was Angie and others. Europe has expelled a bunch of Russian diplomats. Again, it's nice. Doesn't do much, but it's better than not. The European Union ambassadors are meeting on Wednesday to discuss additional sanctions. That's great. Not terribly clear what additional sanctions they can do. Thank you for the roses, by the way, on TikTok. France said that the European Union should consider sanctions against Russian coal and oil. That would be huge. Coal is not very much in terms of its exports to Europe. Oil and natural gas are a lot. Natural gas even more, oil even more. Now, the French saying they're willing to consider oil sanctions is a huge deal. The Germans, on the other hand, the Germans, you were doing so well, Germany, by standing up with this. But the Germans, after yesterday, Germany's defense minister, God bless her, said, we need to sanction Russian oil exports. Basically, we've got to cut ourselves off from Russian oil. The German government jumped in and said, not so fast. Now, Germany does get 40% of its energy from Russia. It would be a huge hit if they were to cut off the energy. But, we are talking crimes against humanity here. And, your gas prices are going up. Yeah. I mean, or your oil prices. I know. But, crimes against humanity, especially Germany. I don't pull that card. I don't pull the Germany card very often, but come on, Germany, you guys have a special responsibility here. So for the U.S., I'm not terribly thrilled with the U.S. response either, to be honest. Biden said today, which was very interesting. Again, interesting language. Language isn't enough, but the language is interesting. And I've talked to you guys about this before. Biden said today that basically we need to have an international war crimes trial of Putin as a war criminal. Very interesting language from him. The reason I say interesting is because, thank you, TikTok, for that. You go back a couple weeks ago. And now anybody who's sort of been on my lives knows this because we've talked about it, but it's interesting to see it progress. You go back a couple weeks ago and we had the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine puts out a tweet accusing Russia of war crimes. Well, the State Department freaked out. Like, oh my God, you can't call it war crimes. And they even told the other U.S. embassies, don't retweet, don't share the tweet from the embassy, from our embassy in Kyiv. Don't do it. We can't say war crimes. Don't say war crimes. Then a couple days later, thank you for that. Now, that's one of my favorites. I will say that and the sorting hat. A couple days later, Biden says he believes that these are war crimes, what Russia's doing. The State Department, and again, I hate how Biden's people are always clarifying because I think they make him look like a lunatic when they keep clarifying. Just let the man speak his mind, But they clarified and said, well, he's not saying the U.S. is saying, he's saying that he personally believes. And you're like, okay, guys, shut up. Just let the man speak. Well, then a couple days later, what happens? The U.S. government says, officially, we have declared these to be war crimes. So that was good. But notice how you're seeing things ratchet up, right? Then you see Biden's increased language about calling Putin a thug and Putin different things. Then you see the speech a week ago Saturday. It was now 8 or 9 days that Biden gave the speech in Poland. Remember, he ended by saying, my God, this man cannot remain in power. And the media freaked out like, oh my God, are you saying we should just go invade Moscow and kill him? And he's like, no, I'm not. Well, I had said at the time, I still wonder whether Biden, in other words, it wasn't a slip. It wasn't that Biden was angry. I think it was a calculated move. And I even think it might have been in his speech so that all the pretense about, we have to correct him might have been just BS. It may have been a ploy. But you look at that speech and you take it to today where Biden is now saying Putin needs to be tried for war crimes. That's very interesting language, hardening. And I say interesting because, Biden up until a week and a half ago, kept talking about World War III. He was using the Russian talking points. And again, I say this as somebody who thinks Biden has done a great job, a wonderful job with the international coalition. Let's face it, okay? All the experts, all of us, I think, we all thought the coalition wouldn't hold together, right? We wouldn't be able to do harsh sanctions. People wouldn't want to stop trading. We have done an amazing job. And not just Biden. The Europeans, the Asians, the South Americans, the Latin Americans, Africans, everybody came together and really did a great job. But what what was I going to say this with regards to Biden? His language is interesting to me because Biden, up until a week ago, was using the World War III argument about how NATO shouldn't get involved, right? Any involvement will cause, the end of the world, whatever. Involved militarily. When you start constantly calling the man a war criminal, calling these war crimes, and saying we need to have a war crimes trial, Russia is right about one thing. It does make it hard to have peace when your country's run by a war criminal. It does. Because I said this, I think I said it during yesterday's live with you guys. It doesn't matter what peace treaty Ukraine has with Moscow. This guy's a war criminal. These guys have done some of the worst atrocities, certainly the worst atrocities in Europe since World War II. They've got to be held responsible. No peace talks can wipe that away. Otherwise, Russia's just free to do this again. So that's why I think Biden's rhetoric is interesting. I am not thrilled because I don't feel like there's anything new coming out of the administration today. I mean, I want to see them turn around and say, you know what? Sorry, thank you for that. I want to see them say, we weren't going to give Ukraine this, this, and this. Now we are. I mean, whether it's the fighter jets, whether it's more tanks, whatever it is, but now we're going to give them something that we weren't going to give them because Russia, thank you, Felicia, for that, because Russia, you crossed the line here. But we've got to somehow signal that this isn't acceptable. I mean, other than our words, I think. Otherwise, what we're telling Putin is, yeah, we're outraged, but just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. As long as it's not nuclear weapons or chemical weapons, we're going to pretend we're angry, or we are going to be angry, but we're not going to actually give them any planes or anything that's going to make it harder for you, right? So anyway, that makes me a little annoyed. Kharkiv. So there are growing concerns about Kharkiv. I just heard about this morning. Thank you for the glasses. And my lights, thank you. I was talking to my friend Vlad, who's my Ukrainian friend who was helping with the fundraising we've been doing. We had raised, thank you for that, $20,000 for food in Kharkiv for humanitarian relief. A lot of that's gone, not all of it yet. He's giving it to different groups. He was telling me about one group today that we gave several $1,000s to that is putting out 7,000 meals a day. I mean, these are just volunteers getting together, cooking, getting the food, cooking the meals, making like individual meals, like in a shopping bag kind of thing, and delivering the groceries to people around town because people can't get food. Some people can get, thank you for that, can get to the grocery stores, but Kharkiv, I had not even totally realized this. Kharkiv is now the second most attacked town in Ukraine after Mariupol. And Mariupol is that horrifically poor town in the south that's been just beaten up by Russia for a month now. They've destroyed almost all the buildings. They bombed the theater that had children written on it, right? They bombed the maternity ward. There's like 100 to 150,000 citizens trapped there without food and water. I mean, Mariupol has to be probably worse than we're seeing in Bucha, right? Kharkiv is still not doing well, though. They're bombing the bejesus out of it. And now the Ukrainian defense minister said they have concerns that the Russians are going to try to grab Kharkiv in the next couple. It is a Russian-speaking town, in fact, which is very interesting. My friend Vlad, who's from Kharkiv, Ukrainian, who actually came on my live several weeks ago, before we sort of got into the fundraising thing, and Vlad said he had told me that Russian was as a Ukrainian, Russian was his first language. And he only started learning Ukrainian when he was 10 years old because he had to, he needed it for his exams in school. I guess like in high school, his high school exams were done in Ukrainian. Thank you for that on TikTok, by the way. And therefore he had to learn it. But up until age 10, he didn't speak it, which also means in his house, he didn't speak it because he would have spoken it before age 10. So they're Russian speakers, but they're Ukrainians. And Russia's trying to use it to their advantage. Honestly, the way the man with the H in Nazi Germany would claim that Germans in other lands were Germans, and therefore he was going to invade the other countries to protect the ethnic Germans, right? So very interesting on that front. In any case, the concern is that Putin may very well be planning to try to, thank you for that, to try to take over Kharkiv, to occupy it in the next few weeks. Vlad told me specifically that they were told to stock up on 2 weeks of food, that everyone in town was told stock up on 2 weeks of food. And I asked him, I said, why? He goes, because they think the Russians are going to occupy us. I said, oh my God. I mean, he escaped with his family to Southwest Ukraine because he's got a 3-year-old daughter and his wife, and he did not want either of them there. So he's helping me do the fundraising and everything from out there. But in any case, so that's what's up in Kharkiv. I will also say it's one more reason I'm glad that a lot of you helped us with the fundraising for the food because they need it. So that was great. Now, I'll give you a little more detail here. Yeah, let me give you a little more. I copied something from one of the papers where the experts were explaining why the Russians are going after Kharkiv. It said that having failed to score a quick victory or capture of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, Russia has resorted to shelling large population centers like Kharkiv in the north and Mariupol in the south, the other city I told you about. To ensure, listen to this, they're shelling the population centers to ensure that Ukrainian resources, thank you, manpower and civil services are occupied away from the front lines where the Russians are looking to take territory. In other words, they bomb the hell out of the second largest city. It's 1.5 million people, the size of Philadelphia, I believe. They bomb the hell out of it. They kill as many people as possible. Thank you. Lorendo, was it? I can never tell with your guys' names. They always confuse me, but thank you. They bomb the hell out of it. They hurt as many people as possible, especially hurting. Killing is one thing. Hurting people, they prefer to do because now you've got to send doctors in. You've got to send, it fills up your hospitals. They are trying to make Ukraine use as many resources as possible to defend Kharkiv and to deal with Kharkiv and not send them to the front with Russia. I mean, and mind you, to put a finer point on it, they're attacking civilians and killing civilians and bombing civilians to help their war effort in the rest of the country. Thank you for that. I mean, that's how screwed up this is. Oh God. All right. Actually, I've been going pretty fast today. I thought I was going to go too long because I had something else. I have to read you this other article. Sorry. I'm going to give you the heart back on TikTok just because we need a little more. We need a little more warm and fuzzy today. So thank you for the TikTok hearts. And that too. 1 second, guys. A little more water. So listen to this. Russian state media. No, mind you, Russia has always been an autocracy, meaning kind of quasi-dictatorship, but not quite. Now they're a dictatorship. I mean, Putin's taken over completely. He has completely gone back to the Soviet days. They are a dictatorship now. Well, one of the national state media services called RIA Novosti, very well known, publishes an op-ed today, in other words, an opinion piece about Ukraine. Now, mind you, when you're dealing with, thank you for that, when you're dealing with 100% of the gifts that 100% of the gifts that either we've been giving them, sorry, just because I saw it on the screen, I always forget to repeat this. 100% of the gifts you guys are given have gone to the Ukrainians. I have not taken a dime. I have actually preferred you to send the money to Vlad directly there, and it's going 100% to people there. And any money, because some of you found it easier to Venmo it to me, whatever. All of that 100%, and I can prove it. I've been literally calculating every amount you put in, and then that's how much I send to Vlad via PayPal. So yeah, no, 0% is going to me. But let me read the story really quick. So RIA Novosti is state media. It's Russian state media. Thank you for that. And they publish an opinion piece, but because it is the state media of a dictatorship, the opinion piece is the opinion of the dictatorship. They don't publish other opinions. It's a dictatorship, right? So listen to this piece. I will put on my ugly glasses for this one. This is a piece, an op-ed called "What Russia Should Do with Ukraine." Mind you, even the name of it, it was written in Russian, of course, but this is a translator. What Russia should do with Ukraine. Denazification. Okay, denazification, you'll recall. Thank you for that. You recall that denazification was one of the terms Russia, and thank you, Elmo. And I also I did see somebody else's little comment about Kate. I did see that about 2 weeks never means 2 weeks. Well, we worry about Russia, whether it's going to be 2 weeks or even, quicker. But yeah, let me get it. Okay, so this is the piece in Retina. So denazification is the term that Russia is using for one of the goals it has in invading Ukraine. And Russia claims the country is run by Nazis. I mean, it's insane. The president's Jewish. All the arguments. But it's one of the things Russia uses, and it's a way, thank you for that on TikTok, it's a way that Russia sort of bucks up the people at home because it hits on the patriotism of them having fought the Nazis in World War II, which Russia's very proud of its battle against the Nazis. Thank you. I do like the universe thing too, or the galaxy thing too. Thank you for that. Or maybe a pulsar, actually, now that I look at it. But so they're very proud of it. So by saying these guys are Nazis and we're fighting them, it's another way of getting people sort of riled up at home, right? So listen to this. Denazification is a set of measures aimed at the Nazified mass of the population. So saying that Ukrainians in general are Nazis, this is my favorite. Listen to this. It's a set of measures aimed at the Nazified mass of the population, which technically cannot be subjected to direct punishment as war criminals. So first paragraph, right? Technically, we're not allowed to kill all the population as war criminals. Technically. That was my first big, I was like, technically? Like, I'm hoping in other languages that nuance comes across the same way. Technically is what you say when you're on a diet and you say, technically I'm not supposed to have dessert, but I have a little anyway. When you say that the majority of the country is Nazis and technically we're not supposed to kill them all, that is where this article is heading indeed. However, besides the elite, meaning the elites in Ukraine, a significant part of the masses of the people who are passive Nazis. So significant part of the Ukrainians are passive Nazis, whatever a passive Nazi is, are accomplices to Nazism. They have supported the Nazi authorities and indulged them. The just punishment for this part of the population, meaning the majority of the population that has tolerated and aided the Nazi leadership, the just punishment of the population is possible only as the bearing of the inevitable hardships of a just war against the Nazi system. In other words, unfortunately, because technically we're not allowed to kill all the civilians, at least we can punish them through this war so that they'll all suffer. Now, the lawyer in me hears that and goes, ding, ding, ding. Oh, so you mean Russia's policy is to make sure the war hurts individual people? That's interesting. Okay. The name Ukraine, here's another part of the essay. The name Ukraine for the country can seemingly not be retained as the title of any fully denazified state formation on the territory liberated from the Nazi regime. Roundabout way of saying, once we've denazified it, we certainly can't use the Nazi name for Ukraine, right? We can't call it Ukraine anymore. Denazification is inevitably also de-Ukrainization, a rejection of the large-scale artificial inflation of the ethnic element of self-identification. I studied Russian law at Georgetown. I didn't even realize this until I was reading this to you guys right now because I read it on the computer, but reading it out loud, this is the kind of BS I used to have to read when I was studying Soviet law at Georgetown, at law school. The Soviet Union still existed. It was the 1980s, and it was just, the language was always so, if you watch if you watch like Stargate, they talk like the Gould. I mean, it's this, just over the top, like crazy stuff. Oh my God. Denazification is inevitably also de-Ukrainization, a rejection of the large-scale artificial inflation of the ethnic element of self-identification. So what they're saying is that the self-identification of the population as Ukrainians was artificially inflated because they're not Ukrainians. They shouldn't self-identify. It was sort of fake, the fact that these people even think they're Ukrainians, and this needs to be stopped. Unlike, let's say, Georgia or the Baltic states, Ukraine, as history has shown, is unviable as a national state, meaning it can't survive as a national state, and attempts to build one logically lead to Nazism. I'm just not even gonna get on the rest of this. The point there is Ukraine can no longer be let to exist, because if Ukraine exists, Nazis will continue to exist. The majority of the populations are Nazis. The government are Nazis. You can't really, unfortunately, we can't kill them. So we've got to retrain them into never thinking they're Ukrainians again. I got news for you, folks. That's ethnic cleansing, and it probably is even genocide. And the White House today didn't want to go there on genocide, and it ticked me off. The President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, was asked. He said, no, it's not genocide yet. And he gave his little explanation. I get why you've got to be legally accurate here, but Jesus Christ, people, any case, two other better stories or something to end our discussion on. And Debbie, thank you for that too, by the way. Anonymous, the Hackers Collective, published 120,000 records of the personal details of Russian troops. Thank you, Andrea, for that. Of the Russian troops in Ukraine. So the details, passport numbers, all sorts of names, all sorts of information on 120,000 Russian troops serving in Ukraine has now been published online. They, specifically pulled out the data of the troops that they believe, thank you, I always love that origami thing, of the troops that they believe were serving in Bucha, which is the town of all the war crimes, and they published photos. People were able to then find photos of these guys. So there are photos of the alleged war criminals. Very interesting. And in part thanks to Anonymous doing this. So Anonymous, I got to tell you, they've been doing some yeoman's work here in terms of what they've been pulling off here. Thank you again for that. The final story, there's a video, but I won't show you here, but it's on my TikTok. I just put it up a couple of minutes ago of a Ukrainian soldier. This is the final story, and then we'll do Q&A. Thank you for the origami again. And the hat, my favorite hat. Ukrainian soldier is going through, a Russian soldier is dead. He's going through his stuff. He's got the body armor, and they need body armor, so I'm sure they're taking and using the body armor. You know, the body armor is like imagine like the vest, the bulletproof vest that a policeman wears, or a cop wears. Same kind of idea. Body armor is there's something metal and heavy inside that stops bullets from going through, right? So he does this video showing the body armor, and inside he goes to get the plate because the metal plate is what they really need. The bulletproof plate is really, really helpful, and Ukraine doesn't have enough body armor. He goes and pulls the plate out, and it's not a normal metal plate. Mind you, this is a soldier who died. He's turning it around. All of a sudden, you see a little apple on the plate, and he opens it. It's a MacBook. The soldier looted a MacBook from one of the homes that he broke into, took out his own body armor and threw it away, and instead put the laptop computer in there, knowing it could kill him, because now if a bullet hit, it would kill him. He's dead. I don't know from looking at the story whether he died because he didn't have the body armor, but my God, I mean, you're that much of an idiot. It's bad enough that you're looting people's homes, but then you're doing this. Ugh, whatever. Any case, all right, that's it for my summary for today. Let's jump in. That was good. That was about a half hour. That wasn't too bad. I just knew there was a lot of stuff, but I didn't want to skip those stories from you guys, or I thought it was important to share them. So one quick second. Thank you for the fireworks. I do love those too. I will jump in first on tiki-taki questions. Well, that's it. If no one's phrased it that way, that's interesting. Jason's Life asks, is this the end of the war or the beginning? Boy, that's really interesting. Well, I don't think we're at the end yet, clearly. We've sort of seen the end of the first part of the war, right? And part one, Russia lost. Russia wanted to take over Kyiv, the capital. They wanted to take over Odessa. They wanted to take over Kharkiv, but they really wanted to take over the capital. From what we've heard, they thought they were going to take over the capital in 3 days. Obviously, they didn't. We're closing in on 36 or 40 days now. They didn't get the capital. Russia clearly lost the first part. They had to remove their troops from around the capital, and now they're really repositioning in the east. I'll give my quick update on how this works in terms of what Russia's plans are, because I know there's different folks who come every day. Bottom line is, Russia's bottom line of what it wants, at least, is Crimea, which they already stole from Ukraine. Crimea is, if you look at the map of Ukraine at some point, thank you for that, you'll see a peninsula at the bottom of Ukraine sticking into the Black Sea. That peninsula Russia stole in 2014 from Ukraine. Then they want to steal the eastern provinces, these two eastern regions. It's called Donbass in general, the region, and they've been fomenting a civil war there for 8 years. They've been paying separatists, basically paying people to, I see that, Casey, I'll get to that in a sec, paying people to just foment trouble, to try to foment an insurrection. People, saying, let's break away the country. And they want to steal that province and make it part of Russia. And then, and this is the tricky part, you've got the Crimea down here, you've got eastern Ukraine here. Well, between them is Ukrainian territory. To connect it, Russia wants to take all the land here along the sea. Well, guess what? They got all the land so far in this war. Guess what they don't have yet? A little town here called Mariupol. Not a little town at all, actually a town of several million people. So Mariupol, not several million, I shouldn't say that, but I don't know the full population. Maybe it's 500,000, I don't even know. But Mariupol has not fallen yet, and Russia needs Mariupol to fall for it to then have this land bridge connecting Crimea to the territories in the east it wants to steal. Because they want, and basically, eventually, all of it becomes Russia, and then becomes one long thing, right? So that's what's going on. The question becomes, as I said, will they go after Kharkiv as well? This is the end of the beginning. It is not the end of the war. This is going on for a while. I think initially, and I'll get to the questions, we had thought this was going to be a guerrilla war because we thought Ukraine was going to lose. Ukraine didn't lose so quickly. But this phase of the war, Ukraine needs our help. They need massive amounts of our equipment and ammunition and weapons and everything else. I hope to God we're getting it to them. KC, what pressure can we put on China so that they aren't so chummy with Putin? I have no idea. You know, the U.S. is always not even the U.S. The world is in a weird position with China because China is an economic superpower, so to speak. You know what I mean? Russia, you're worried about Russia, all they have going for them are nuclear weapons. Whereas, you know, China is a big economic behemoth that lots of corporations from all over the world are tied in with. It becomes much harder to do that. And at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what we can do with China. I think we are clearly trying to woo China. It's not working. There were more stories today of some of the propaganda that was being shared within China of a new video the government produced praising Putin for the war. Thank you for that. And saying how Putin is now as great as Stalin and look at the wonderful things he's done in Moscow and now how wonderful it is that he's launching this war. So I don't know. It's not good though what's going on with China. No. Hold on a second. Rob Wright. How long till Putin starts selling nukes to enemy countries? Yeah, let's hope not. I'm sure there's a market for them, especially the tactical nukes. I guess the question would be why you think he would sell them. I mean, the thing for Putin is he's crazy, but he's not crazy. It does not help Russia to have other countries be nuclear because, first of all, Russia wants the ability to push people around, and it is able to push people around because it's nuclear. Russia would have a much harder time attacking another nuclear country because in the end they could say, you know what, if we're at risk of losing our whole country, we'll use our weapons against you. So it may not be in Russia's interest to have other countries be nuclear. Now it could move nukes into those countries like Belarus, its puppet allies. It did the same thing in Eastern Europe, after World War II, up until the end of the Cold War, that they moved their nukes into Eastern Europe and stuff. But other than that, I don't think he's that dumb to just go sell nukes to other countries. Let's hope to God he's not that dumb. Let me jump to a TikTok question. TikTok. I don't think so. No, I mean, this is the larger question. I mean, I can even, yeah. Your names crack me up. I can even, yeah. On TikTok asks, is Russia leaving, leaving these areas so they can drop a nuke on Kyiv? Well, if they do that, then we are going to have a world war. That's it. Russia drops a nuke and we're going to war. I don't see how we don't go to war if that happens. I mean, literally, that is not, I saw something today. I was going to scream. Then the stories I read was saying how diplomats are saying that if Russia uses a chemical, biological, or nuclear weapon, then we're going to cut off its oil sales. And I'm like, honey, Russia uses a nuclear weapon and we're doing a hell of a lot more than cutting off oil sales. And even chemical and biological, first of all, nuclear, forget it. Nuclear, it's over. I think we're in the war. Chemical and biological, it's going to depend on what he does, how he does it. Does he poison a person? Like this whole issue of the negotiators that we think he poisoned. He poisoned 3 of them, but he didn't kill them. This kind of going for that gray in between territory. It depends how many people they go after. The Russians aren't stupid. I mean, again, even though our leaders have been making a lot of noise about Russia has nukes, they've sort of forgotten the fact that we have nuclear weapons too. And we don't want to use them, but our nuclear policy is to use them if we get attacked. I just don't, yeah, anyway. It's annoying me, but you know that I get annoyed about the nuke thing. Wait, Trisha, but yes, I just missed Chloe first though. Thank you for that, Chloe. That is incredibly generous of you, by the way. Chloe Reitherman says, I've heard that chemical weapons are more likely to be used, I've got to say this clearly for the TikTokers. I'll get rid of the TikTok question here. Thank you for asking that. I can't even, yeah. Oops, sorry, close the TikTok. I've heard that chemical weapons are more likely to be used than nuclear. What kind of chemical weapons does Russia have and how can Ukraine protect themselves? How likely do you think it is Putin will use them based on past behavior? Okay, I don't know the weapons they have, but let's go through this. Way more likely than nuclear because, as I said, nuclear is its own thing where I think they use a nuclear weapon. I don't mean a dirty bomb. Dirty bomb gets into funny territory too. Dirty bomb is when you take a regular bomb and I don't know how you make it, but you almost could tape plutonium to it, like nuclear material to it. So when the bomb explodes, it doesn't make the nuclear material explode. It simply makes the nuclear material, dematerial, right? I mean, a bomb goes off, everything goes everywhere. It throws the nuclear material everywhere as a cloud in the sky down the block and scares the hell out of people. It's a really good terror weapon. And there was concern about people, terrorists eventually doing that in one of our cities in the West, because it would terrorize people, because everybody would be like, nuclear, but it's not a nuclear bomb. So they could do that. And that would be short of a nuclear bomb. So it'd be interesting to see the reaction. If they use nuclear weapons, I think we're at war. Chemical and biological, probably depends how they do it. I don't know what chemical they have. We do know that the chemical weapons were used in Syria horrifically. I know here in the States, we saw the broadcasts of these. It must have been Aleppo. I'm assuming was it another town besides Aleppo? Let me just see here really quick. Join in and tell me if I'm wrong. Was it another? I thought it was another town. It wasn't just Aleppo, wasn't it? Where they were using the chemical weapons against people in Syria. But anyway, we saw the videos here of these fathers carrying their young children. It is Aleppo. Okay. Yeah. These fathers carrying their young, and it's like young daughters and young sons that are like 3 years old. I mean, it was a baby. Oh my God. I mean, that was horrific. The point is, they did it before and they got away with it. So would they do it again? Yes. And I do worry that we've put ourselves in a position where we've made it so clear that we're afraid of nuclear war and we're afraid of World War III by saying, and I've made this point before, by saying NATO cannot get involved militarily with Russia because that's the end of the world, then you're saying nothing can get NATO involved. Even if he used a nuclear weapon on Kyiv. Okay, 3 million people die. Well, if it's the end of the world, if we respond to that by going to war, then we're not going to war, right? I mean, I don't like this argument of, World War III, because it pretty much means Putin can do anything. And maybe we'll cut off gas sales. Maybe we'll do more sanctions, but we never would fight back. We would never enter the war because that would be the end of the world. So Putin could do anything. Anyway, so I think chemical is certainly more likely than nuclear. We have been giving in the last few days, I know it was reported that we've been giving the Ukrainians equipment, I guess, to protect themselves and maybe even clean up, to protect themselves against chemical and biological attack. So that has been happening in the last few days. I know that for a fact. But yeah, off of past behavior, yes. And one of the troubling things, and then I'll move on to the next question. You may remember about a week, maybe I can't believe this war has been going on for 40 days now almost. I mean, this is insane. It just, but you'll remember maybe a couple weeks ago, the White House had put out the message that they were very concerned about Putin using chemical weapons, and they were warning about it. That to me means they had intelligence suggesting that Putin was planning to use it. They either intercepted intelligence of Putin giving the order saying, now you can use it. They may have even intercepted Russian generals talking to each other about who they were going to bomb. But from my opinion, clearly, we got intelligence that clearly said Putin's planning on using these weapons, at least the chemical. And that's why the White House came out and said that. They would not have said what we have seen, especially, I think with each White House, you have to kind of learn how they operate. What we saw in the lead up to this war is that this White House was very okay with releasing intelligence information about what Putin was planning to do. And it frankly helped a lot. And frankly, it's also the reason why this White House was saying Putin's going to invade. And remember, even the Ukrainians were like, he's not going to, why are you being so scared? He's not going to invade, right? So I would trust the White House's intelligence. Their intelligence on this seems to be quite accurate. Let me see now. Thank you for that again, Chloe. Trisha, I read Russia gets parts of nuke weapons from Ukraine. Well, I don't know about that. It depends what you're reading. I don't know about that. What is possible you read was back in 1994, Ukraine had nuclear weapons because Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. 1991, the Soviet Union dissolves, is no more. Ukraine becomes an independent country, and guess what? It has thousands of thousands of the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons are in Ukraine. So Ukraine made a deal to give them up and give them to Russia in exchange for a security guarantee from the Brits, from America, and from Russia. Well, what happened subsequently? Russia invades in 2014. Thank you for that, Pamela, by the way. Russia invades in 2014, and we don't guarantee Ukraine security. In fact, Ukraine loses Crimea to Russia. What happens again? 2022. Russia invades Ukraine again. Are we guaranteeing their security? We're giving them a lot of weapons. Yes, a lot of ammunition. I would not say we're guaranteeing them their security. So that I don't know. I don't know whether there's something else going on where literally Ukraine has been somehow helping Russia, although I would think Ukraine would not be terribly happy about selling parts to Russia for nuclear weapons. Certainly not in the last 12 years. You know what I mean? I mean, especially after they invaded Ukraine. I mean, after they took Crimea back 8 years ago, I can't imagine Ukraine would do anything to help Russia after that, especially for military. So if they did, I doubt they are anymore. But also, you might have been reading about the other story where they gave up their nukes. Oh, isn't this the $10,000 question? Sorry, remember I said that when I get the super chat questions, I do that first. I will get to the TikTok questions too. Lori Keene asks, are the Ukrainians getting any tanks? Well, isn't that an interesting question? Because this weekend, we were told that Ukraine was getting tanks. And then it was reported either this morning or yesterday, maybe yesterday, that they were going to be T-72 tanks. They even named the kind of Soviet tanks they were going to be. And that they were old tanks, but and the Russians use these tanks too. And I watched this whole thing, but they're going to be better because what we do in the West, we take the Soviet tank, but we put a much better firing mechanism on top and, in other words, better guns and this kind of stuff. So it would work better. Well, then today, I suddenly hear a couple hours ago, some reporter picks this up in the White House language that no longer does the White House seem to be talking about tanks. And they're talking about other equipment going to Ukraine. So, up until the time I came on with you guys, I was sort of Googling and not finding any more information on this. But a couple hours ago, it was kind of like, So help me God, if they do the same thing on the tanks that they did on these fighter jets, so help me God. I just, but there has been no word of progress on the tanks. Let's leave it at that. So, actually, if somebody wants to Google while we're talking, go ahead and see if there's been any kind of progress. But you'd have to find an article. I'm looking for a question on TikTok. You'd have to find an article in the last couple hours, 6 hours ago maybe, that's talking about whether the tanks are still going to Ukraine. Really quick. Claudia Elizabeth. Will Ukraine gaining back the airport help them justify the MiGs? Oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe. It depends. It depends what the U.S.'s problem really is. The U.S. No, I don't think so. The U.S. thinks the MiGs are a provocation. Our government thinks that we're provoking Putin if we give these MiG fighter jets, old Soviet fighter jets, and we give them from Poland to Ukraine, and then Poland we would give other fighter jets to help them. I froze? I did not freeze. No way. I didn't touch anything. Bastards. Okay, I've got to tell the TikTok people I'm going to hang up and come right back. Damn. Oh, shit. There we go. Oh, I've got to keep remembering I shouldn't swear when I'm talking to you guys. Sorry about that. There we go. Wow, that was weird. Wow. That was annoyingly weird. 1 second, Sash. I'm here with my peeps. Wow, that was weird. Welcome back, guys. Sorry, we're going to wait a minute for the TikTokers. I have no idea what happened. That was incredibly annoying. Hope everybody comes back. That was weird. I have no idea why. The weird part was all I was doing was touching the live questions. What we had, sorry, YouTubers. I'm explaining to the TikTokers, the poor TikTokers I had frozen on. I don't know what that was. Yeah, exactly. Somebody got me in trouble again. I don't know. That was weird. Wow. I wonder, well, remember the last time this happened a few weeks ago, I even got that it was closing down on me. As always, the weirdest part when it freezes is I can see your question. So I actually saw the TikTokers commenting and saying, oh my God, it froze. So, which is actually good, at least so I knew. And frankly, by the way, it proves to you that I do read your comments and I do see the gifts that you guys give me on TikTok because I saw you saying if it was frozen, that's how I knew. So sorry about that. That was freaked out. That's kind of annoying though, because we lost a lot of the people that were watching. Shoot, we had like 2,500 people at that point. Oh, well, sorry, TikTokers. I wish I could put up a message that just says it glitched out. Who knows? That was weird. Wow, it froze. Yeah, it froze. I just froze. Oil can. Sorry, Wizard of Oz reference. Any case, yeah, so Claudia Elizabeth, as you froze, Claudia Elizabeth, sorry about that, TikTokers. I'll keep explaining, it froze. So Claudia Elizabeth was asking that now that Ukraine got its airport back, and I assume she means the airport that's just north of Kyiv, the capital, I think it's called Hostomel, or the town at least is called Hostomel. The Ukrainians got the airport back. Could they now get the MiGs from Poland? Remember the jets that initially we said were going and then we didn't? I don't think so, because for whatever reason, our government or our governments, the US government is scared of giving these MiGs to Ukraine because they think the Russians are going to freak out and bomb Poland or something. I said before, I think that what you've got going on, all right, people are back. Thank you guys. Thank you, TikTokers, for coming back. It froze. We don't know why. Maybe somebody evil, who knows? But we're talking about the big fighter jets and whether now Ukraine can get them. I think the Russians contacted the American government and said privately, if you give those fighter jets to Ukraine, we're bombing Poland. We're bombing air bases in Poland. I think, or even worse, we're going to bomb them before they take off. And the Biden administration got freaked out. Personally, this is my guess just as a policy guy in Washington, but Biden has been so freaked out about sending those planes that it makes me think something happened to scare him out of sending those planes. So that is my take on that. All right, I'm going to risk pulling up a TikTok question. This better not freeze on me. No updates on the gas payments in rubles. NATO peacekeepers, great idea. MD Drifter says, what about NATO peacekeepers? You know, NATO should have sent peacekeepers in from the beginning. I mean, that's one of the things we could have done. NATO could have done it, and the UN could have done it. We knew for months. I mean, I don't remember if it went back 6 months, but we've known for months that Russia was planning to invade. We could have put NATO peacekeepers, or UN peacekeepers. They could have been, thank you for that on TikTok, by the way. They could have been spread around the country, and that too. And the whole point of them being there is to make it too high a price for Russia to invade. Russia can't bomb Kyiv if it knows NATO troops are in Kyiv, or they can't. And even better, because, you know, Putin's all freaked out about NATO. You could always do UN troops would be better, because Putin keeps claiming NATO's the reason he's invading and all this kind of stuff. I don't think it's true. But use UN troops then, United Nations troops, because if he attacks United Nations troops, he's literally attacking people from all over the world. I don't know why people did it. I think it was stupid as hell. Demands U.S. stop selling. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, stop stalling. That's interesting. Okay. Sorry. Kendra was just giving us an update. We were talking possibly when you guys froze, possibly before. I was asked about the tanks and whether the U.S. was going to send those tanks that we had said were going to get sent. And I read earlier today that something may have gotten messed up with those tanks that we were sending. Remember, we were sending some Soviet tanks to Ukraine. Something may get held up with that. Thank you for that. And anyway, Kendra just brought up a quote. Liz Truss. Who is Liz Truss? Liz Truss demands the U.S. stop stalling on sending the tanks. I don't know who Liz Truss is, though. If you would tell us in the comments, put them there, and then I'm going to, and then I will actually. Oh, well, anyway, and put it there real quick, and then so the NATO peacekeepers. Yeah. So I think we should have had peacekeepers from the beginning. I think it's stupid. Now, you still could have peacekeepers now. Again, the UN is probably a little safer than doing NATO, because Putin wants it to be NATO because at the same time, he almost wants a war with NATO because his own people are so freaked out about NATO. Having said that, Putin's an idiot. The UK Foreign Secretary, somebody said, okay, Putin's an idiot if he wants a war with NATO because, of course, he's not beating the Ukrainians. Imagine if all of NATO gets involved. So, you know, but yes, you could have peacekeepers, for example, going into Western Ukraine, where you've got Kyiv, and for example, that you've had cruise missiles coming in, right? The cruise missiles that hit Kyiv when Biden was talking in Poland. Remember, Russia blew up that oil plant or oil refinery. So you have cruise missiles coming in, but there are really no Russian troops in Western Ukraine. Why don't we put some peacekeepers there? Again, NATO could be tricky, but at the very least, you could easily do a UN. And frankly, they should, because then at least Eastern Ukraine isn't going to be tough. And frankly, I would do Kyiv as well right now, and Odessa, because it still looks like he might go after Odessa. Why don't we put peacekeepers there? And again, certainly for Kyiv, the capital. Obscure Camera 24 asks, do Merkel and Sarkozy, oh God, deserve blame for Ukraine not being in NATO? I don't know. So Merkel is the former German chancellor, of course. Sarkozy's the former French president. It's funny. I've done France stuff for 30 years now, and they changed back and forth from whether the president or the prime minister was more important. And now we're back to president again. So it's President Macron, correct. President Sarkozy. I don't know enough about who did what to keep Ukraine out of NATO. I do know that there was this general concept of A, they weren't democratic enough, and B, the really funny thing, they don't have a good enough military, right? Ukraine didn't have a good enough military to be with us big boys and girls in NATO. And now we see that Ukraine did have a good enough military. And at the same time, mind you, NATO let in smaller countries, like some smaller former Yugoslavian countries, which I'm fine letting in, but whose military clearly didn't match up to Ukraine's military. And NATO didn't have a problem. So what NATO did, and I wouldn't be surprised, obscure camera, if the US was involved too. NATO was afraid of including Ukraine because they were afraid of the Russians freaking out that we protected Ukraine. And especially you're seeing it now. You're seeing us in terms of we're even afraid of giving them planes and stuff. Imagine, I mean, if we wouldn't give them planes right now, we certainly wouldn't let them in NATO because that would have been an even bigger provocation. So that's my take. So yeah, sorry about the moderators. I know the Russians go kind of goofy, crazy, blah, blah. Didn't see that. Yeah, I mean, again, the UN, that's what we're just talking about, you know? The UN, we should have brought in peacekeepers. Well, okay, this is a great question. So Haas 50 asks, if Russia has so many troops, why call up reserves? Great question, because we always hear about Russia having like a 1 million man army or something like that. And I was reading about this the other day because I thought the same thing. I was like, well, you know, they've only got 160,000, or they brought 160,000 troops. They have fewer now. But they brought 160,000 troops to Ukraine, and they've got 1 million nationwide. That means they could have 7 times this number, right? Well, the problem is, one of the biggest problems, Russia is such a huge country that they can only afford to bring so many troops over. With 11 time zones, they've got, I mean, it is a ridiculous, 11 time zones, literally. America, the main continent, is only 3 time zones. And then you get Hawaii and Alaska adds like 4 and 5. But East Coast to West Coast America is only 3 time zones. Russia's 11. So you need so many troops to just spread around, and they're spread pretty thinly around there, that Russia can't afford to remove all its troops, because then literally the rest of the country is unprotected. And then if they really go to war with America, then we invade from Alaska or whatever. I mean, that is one big reason. I also saw, and I don't know enough, I have to ask a military friend about this. I don't know enough as to why, but they moved their best prepared troops to Ukraine. And what I think that means is we know that a large number of the troops that Russia moved to Ukraine are conscripts, basically people doing their annual military draft, their military service. It's not a draft like a nationwide draft, like we're at war. It's something the U.S. doesn't have, but other countries have. Israel has it and stuff, where, you know, people have to do their military service for a year or 2, right? Or in Russia, it's a year and you can extend it to 2. Also, I don't think everyone gets drafted, you know, because they, for example, they take new people in twice a year. They just took in like 130,000 new people. They may do the same in the fall. So does that mean a quarter of the people are conscripts, maybe half even? So the question here becomes, what percentage of Russia's force are people who are going and doing their obligatory military service, which you've got to do for a year, but means you're young, you're inexperienced, and you're just there to do it and leave? Well, that's not very professional military. So they don't, if you've got a lot of that nationwide, those 1 million troops may not help you very much. So yeah, I don't know. We may not have, I don't know, TikTok folks, if we've got any moderators who can jump over to, YouTube folks, if we've got any moderators who can jump over to TikTok, there's a lot of garbage being posted. People have asked for help, and I can even see people are posting, it's the trolls. They're bringing up all the other crazy topics and everything else. But if anybody can go over there, I'd appreciate it. So let me see. Yeah, cute. Sorry, Olga. I had posted your thing up there and had it ready, and I'm reading it now. That's very cute. Yeah, because of the sanctions, Russia can't afford to pay them on the weekends. Let me find another question here on TikTok. What do we got here? No, it's an interesting question. I mean, it's funny. It's a troll question, but but you could be asking it legitimately. I'm going to answer it. Queen Alma originally asks, why is Ukrainian life more important? Depending what you're asking, I think your question might be, and it's a fair question, but why does the world rally around some causes and not others? And in this case, Ukrainian civilians are being destroyed and the whole world is standing up. When Syrian civilians were being murdered, the whole world was outraged, but the whole world didn't stand up. The whole world did not sanction Russia. It first of all is going to depend country by country. America, even though a growing percentage of our population is now, actually, I think we're majority not white anymore. When I say white, I mean European heritage. The majority is no longer that, but very close. So you're talking the rest would be Latin American, especially Latin American, smaller percent African American or Black. That's maybe like 13% of the US population. Latinos are big. Latinos could be 35% or more. But generally speaking anyway, America is a very Eurocentric culture because of our origins as an English colony, because of our shared language with England or with the UK, and because most of our ancestors until now came from Europe. My family came from Greece, and my family came from Greece. All my grandparents immigrated from Greece, and my mother immigrated from Greece. So I still feel like I have a lot of relatives there in Greece. So to me, Europe is still this larger family feeling for me. The Middle East is not. What I'm saying is not that I would logically say, therefore, I don't care about Syria. But I'm saying, I think with the population in general, each country responds to how they feel, how they feel about a country, and it's horrible. But when it comes down to it, I explained this a few weeks ago, the leader of a country has got to decide when they do get involved and when they don't get involved in potential wars abroad. And they can't get involved in everything, and they need the popular support of the people. So if the people are more supportive of European countries than they are other countries in the world, then the people are going to be more supportive of America intervening to help those other countries. Again, Kosovo. I mean, I support what we did in Kosovo, absolutely. And it's because we were watching the images on TV of these people that looked like my grandparents. I mean, Kosovo is actually near to Greece, and it was outrageous what was happening. And so I don't know, but what I'd be curious about, which would be interesting, is to see, for example, do Latin American countries feel like they want to get more involved when it's another Latin American country where something bad is happening, or African countries or Asian countries? I'd just be curious, like, is the shared ethnicity, does it work that way as well? I don't know. In any case, it's not a good thing, obviously. But if that's your question, but it's a good question. I know there was a big Trevor Noah thing on this that I did not see though. Well, you know what? But that's an interesting point. I mean, Jessica Cerna says her own opinion, but she says we're talking about this issue of why the West, for example, would get involved in Ukraine, but not Syria when the civilians were getting killed there with chemical weapons by the Russians. My opinion is that it's been a while the world has seen white people flee. They expect brown people to be suppressed. I think that there is this. Now, this is where you get into the fatigue question. Somebody had asked during one of our live discussions a couple days ago or maybe a week ago, and they said, do you think there will be Ukraine fatigue at some point? Meaning people will just get tired of the story. And I was saying not even bored with the story, but maybe just kind of either it becomes too much or they go, oh yeah, I know, it's just never going to end. It's horrible. What do you do? It's just never going to end. And I think I would not be surprised for Americans, for example, they see the Middle East and they think, yep, another bomb went off. Yep, another war, right? And I think, again, if you're dealing in a democracy, you've still got to deal with your people and whether they want you involved in foreign wars and foreign military things. And I would never say it the way you said it, Jessica, because I wouldn't want to get myself in trouble. I don't know what race you are, but I think that's part of it is people are, I wouldn't even say it's white and brown. I think it's regions. people look at the region of the Middle East and they think, yeah, they're always at war, And Latin America, no. See, Latin America would be different too, but Latin America, it could be prejudice, which is bad too. I mean, Latin America could just be prejudice that Americans look and think, well, they're Latino, but Europe is white. It very well could be race. I don't know. I will say this though, you can't get involved in every war and everything, and that is true. Because it also reminds me of people when I'm talking about issues I work on, and they're like, well, why don't you work on this issue instead? And I'm like, well, it's sort of like this right now. I'm working on Ukraine. I'm doing this full time. I can't work on anything else right now. We should be glad people get involved, but I agree. There should be more concern in general, especially, I mean, we had chemical weapons used in Syria. That should have been it. And I loved Obama as president, but I will blame him for that. He drew a red line and said no chemical weapons. Putin did it, and he went, and that was bad. No, I totally agree on that. Nuremberg trials part 2. Well, that's what Biden was kind of hinting at today. And the question becomes whether the sort of trials to hold Russia accountable happen at The Hague. They certainly can't happen via the United Nations because Russia would veto it. A separate Nuremberg trials. I mean, one thing that's important for the trials, and I've talked about this before when this has come up, is it is apparently very difficult to prove war crimes because you need to be able to prove that the person themselves did it. So first of all, in Bucha, people were given an example. Okay, the man that had his hands tied behind his back. Who tied his hands behind his back? Right? Was it the Russians? Who shot him? Was it the Russians? I mean, it's probably the Russians, but do we know it wasn't one of his neighbors? I mean, right? I'm a lawyer, so I have to ask these questions. You've got to be able to prove that to a jury that, yes, it clearly, all the evidence we present means it has to have been the Russians. All the evidence it presents means the Russians had to have tied him first, which means he was a prisoner, and you don't shoot prisoners. Then comes which soldier shot him? Do you know the name of the soldier? Because we've got to hold that soldier accountable. Who was the boss of the soldiers that day, like some colonel or I don't know, lieutenant, whatever, but who was in charge of those soldiers? Did that person know? Did that person give an order in general saying, go and kill civilians, we don't care? Right. And then you go higher and higher. Does the general in charge of the region, there's 20 generals the Russians have appointed, to 7 of whom have been killed, to take charge of the war. Did the general know? Did the minister of defense know? Did Putin know? Proving all of that can be hard. But hey, from Ukraine, we always look. A quick applause for the Ukrainian who checked in on TikTok. Woo! Always happy to see the Ukrainians. You guys keep fighting. The other thing, which is interesting, though, about war crimes is even if we can't prove it, meaning even if we can't prove who was responsible, what is important, though, is I think we need some Nuremberg type trials because we need something very public that the world can see and the world can witness what happened and have the prosecution presented in a very clear way for history's sake that shows that, yes, Russia did this. We're at the part of the show where my dog is complaining because she knocked her blanket off and wants me to cover her up. And if you could only hear is this, Sash, you got to wait a couple minutes. I'm going to go maybe another 5 minutes, maybe a bit longer. And then we end this part, and then we all kind of hang out and talk. Hey, Ukraine. Then we all hang out and talk a little bit. Because that's what we do. But I've been going now for an hour and 10 minutes. I like to go just a little bit longer, but then not too much longer. Was there any questions I'm missing from you all on YouTube? Otherwise, I will jump back to Tiki-Taki. Happy to. Anything here? A lot of good comments. Okay. I'm going to do a question from you TikTokers. I always laugh at the YouTubers because the YouTubers are I call them the small but mighty YouTubers because everyone's always chatting so much amongst themselves about the topic that they're not posting questions, which is okay though, but it always makes me laugh that it's, this is a brilliant question. Ray Cray, that's cute, asks on TikTok, how can we interact with Russia? How can we interact with Russia after this war? That's been my big question. And that is why I think what Biden did today by saying that, Putin needs to be held responsible for war crimes at a war crimes trial, that makes it almost impossible to go back to having normal relations with him again. How do you? I mean, we've already called him a war criminal and the country war crimes, right? These are war crimes, and that Putin's a war criminal. That was bad enough in terms of how do you deal with this guy afterwards. But saying that we've got to have war crimes trials, well, you can't have a summit with the man in the future, right? You can't let him into the country. I mean, we could let him into the country for the UN because we always have to do that. We don't have a choice for that. We've got to let him in for that. But otherwise, I think this is why I think Biden's changing language, and even the language today, even though it's just words saying he needs to be put up for a war crimes trial and tried for war crimes, the words are very important diplomatically because you can't sort of move on diplomatically from something like that. Once you call him a war criminal, we can't have normal relations with this country ever again until he leaves. So I think we're in for another Cold War, at least for a while. The Cold War is back. I mean, somebody had said that and I'm going to get to Nathan's question in a second here on YouTube. Somebody had said recently when the Ukraine war started, well, now the Cold War is definitely over. We're in this new phase of history. I think we're back in the Cold War, folks. It feels like that to me. It's Russia. Russia's the Soviets all over again, and they're terrorizing Europe, and, it ain't good. So Nathan Turcotte makes an observation, at least. Everyone getting deported into Russia from Ukraine to filtration camps, are they really filtration camps, or is it mass execution like the Holocaust? Who knows? We do know what Nathan's talking about is we do know that a number of Ukrainians have been, deported, kidnapped, basically, and taken into Russia. I've seen figures as high as 62,000. Also, a number of Ukrainians sought refuge in Russia, like 300,000. And the question is, because, thank you for that. If you're living on the border with Russia and war breaks out and bombs are falling, well, at least bombs aren't falling in Russia. So you might run across the border to Russia to hide for a bit to get away from the bombs. That doesn't mean you want to stay in Russia forever. So the first question becomes, people who voluntarily went to Russia, will they be allowed to come back by Russia? The second problem becomes, like you said, the people Russia kidnapped, well, what are they doing with them? They say they've got these filtration camps, and the phrase was a little creepy, obviously, where they're putting each criminal, Ukrainian who's been kidnapped has to go in front of these 10 military people who then question them to find out if they're a spy and to find out if they know about troop movements. They take their phone, they take all of their cell phones, and they plug their cell phone into some computer, and for 20 minutes it copies at the very least your address book, but probably your entire phone gets copied. And they're compiling everybody's cell phones. I mean, really creepy stuff. Really creepy stuff. So what I think is important, Nathan, is what was said today. Thank you for that. A lot of the observers here in the U.S. are saying that we shouldn't just think that what happened in Bucha, the Russian war crimes there, where so many civilians were killed, where civilians were summarily executed, hands tied behind their back. You don't kill someone with their hands tied behind their back. That is per se a war crime. That we shouldn't just think that this is Bucha. Mariupol is going to be just as bad, and a lot of other cities. I'm already hearing, I don't know if it was Berdianka or Chernihiv, that they were saying they're expecting even worse stories are coming out of. That I don't know about the ones in Russia, but clearly here, this is not the end of the war crimes, clearly. Another Catherine asks, does it seem Biden is working on building support at home for more support for the war with Russia? I think so. I think that's what's happening with his language. I think Biden's language has changed over the last 2 weeks because he's changed, but also meaning initially he really wanted to keep us out of a war and thought, let's do sanctions. And now he's getting more and more convinced that we are, excuse me, my allergy. It's that time in the talk that my allergies bother me. That Biden is getting to the point now where he always had said that Putin was a killer. Biden called Putin a killer years ago. And it's cute because the media asked him and they're like, ooh, you called Putin a killer, this kind of thing. And I think Biden has moved beyond that to Putin is evil. I mean, he really is much more concerned now than he was 2 weeks ago about the man and about Russia's aspirations. And I think he is trying to alert the world to that fact, but he's also trying to prepare the American public that this may get a lot worse and we may have to do a lot more. Even though Biden has been adamant he doesn't want us to get involved militarily, I think he's preparing us for that possibility. Yeah. But honestly, if it really comes down to it, Biden's not the one preparing us. The Russians are preparing us because the Russians are the one doing the outrages that I had said from weeks ago, I had said that I thought what would get NATO involved in the war was going to be Russia doing outrages that are caught on camera. And once there's video and camera and film and photos of war crimes that are so horrific that the world can't not act, that's when things change. Was this enough? Thank you for that on TikTok. I did see that. I don't know. Dmitry, Ukrainian. Hello, Dmitry. Oh, that's nice. Dmitry just sent a hello and a thank you. Thank you. That was sweet of you. We love the Ukrainians, and I'm from Chicago. We have a lot of Ukrainians there, so we love the Ukrainians anyway. All the more so. KC weighs in. What is the state of the Red Cross in Russia? Oh boy, it was funny. I was talking to Vlad today, and I mentioned my Ukrainian friend in Ukraine, and I mentioned the Red Cross, and he cut me off and he said, "Don't give anything to the Red Cross." The Red Cross, they hate the Red Cross now there, because the Red Cross has been playing a game. The Red Cross has not been helping in Ukraine as much as they should. At the same time, they've been way too cozy with Russia. They wanted to establish an office to help with all the people that Russia kidnapped. And the Ukrainians were like, so you're going to legitimize the kidnapping? I mean, the whole thing. I know as far as the refugees themselves, I checked right before I came on with you guys. The Red Cross was turned down again by the Russians. The Russians stopped the Red Cross from entering Mariupol. This is a town where people are literally starving, and the Russians will not let them in because that is the Russian goal. The Russian goal is to have people starve. They want to break the spirit of the Ukrainians. I mean, it's horrific. It's really anyway. All right, I'll do one last question. Let me pull up one last TikTok question. Again, if you guys, I just want to put I can't put him back up. I can't find it. I was going to say, I wanted to put the Ukrainian back up just because it made me happy that the Ukrainian weighed in. Hold on. There he is, Dmitry. I'm putting Dmitry up just because Dmitry makes me happy. Let me pull up another ticky-tacky question, and then I'm going to close it up. Unless somebody buys a super chat, I will answer that. Otherwise, this will be the last question, and then we're going to hang out and just chat as friends for a bit because I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. I need a break. The Finland thing is interesting. Well, that's interesting. Okay, do I think Finland will join NATO? They're getting damn close, and I think NATO will have them. The only question becomes whether NATO thinks it's a little too obnoxious to do it right now, right? Like Russia's a little too freaked out and all of this kind of stuff. That's the only thing I don't know. Whether NATO would say, Finland, let's hold off a bit, or whether Finland at some point would say, Russia, Finland, come join us. But Finland seems to be getting awfully close. I know the opinion polls have gotten much better. The Swedes, even the Swedish opinion polls are definitely now pro joining NATO. But, let's see where all of that goes. I missed a super chat question. Whose? Where? Sorry, Lori Keene says I missed a super chat question. Okay, which, where? If somebody can copy the super chat question. Oh, there it is. Sorry. And then I will get to your May 9th question. Sorry about that. Curtis Stryker, do you think UN peacekeepers would have been sent if the Russian Federation was not president of the UN Security Council, in the first week of the war? I don't know how UN peacekeepers are sent, is the question. So that becomes the question. Would it have to be the security? I'm going to write a note to myself. Would it have to be the Security Council, or would it be a majority vote of UN members, which maybe we could get? Now, you have a little bit of a problem where, remember, even Ukraine didn't think the Russians were going to invade. Most Ukrainians did not. They thought these guys are our brothers. So could you have even would Ukraine have even wanted peacekeepers? I don't know. There's an interesting question right there. And would other countries have wanted to put the peacekeepers if they thought, well, it's not really clear Russia's invading? I don't know. If it's got to go via the Security Council, then clearly that's why. By the way, it doesn't even matter if Russia chairs it because Russia has a veto power on the United Nations Security Council. So if the Security Council has to approve it, Russia would disapprove it. So it wouldn't happen anyway. So I just don't know enough whether that's Security Council or whether that's a General Assembly, majority vote. It could be that. All right. Sorry about that. Sorry. Tell me if I'd missed anybody out. And Lori, thank you, Lori. I appreciate you sort of doing that to tell me. Okay. MT says UN peacekeepers require the UN Security Council to authorize. Well, then that would have never happened, obviously. Russia would veto it. Yeah, they would just veto it. Okay. That's interesting, MT. Yeah. I'm here for whenever John dunks on the UN. Mary Dillman. That's okay, Mary. Interesting. Sorry, B. Redden says there's a Russian news article out today justifying the war. I did earlier in the show. I read details of one article that was the Russians talking about how basically Ukraine is all Nazis and needs to be, the whole Ukrainian state needs to be eliminated. I don't know if it's that story or whether there's a different one, though. I guess to some degree, I'm not surprised that the Russians are justifying the war. Of course they would. But this article was particularly bad, though, because it was like literally, the whole country is made up of Nazis, even the citizens. Now, this last little thing I thought was interesting from the name that I almost didn't pronounce right. But no, Streamstopper Kwan asks, what happens if this isn't over by May 9th? So Russia kept saying that it wanted to, end the war by May 9th. And apparently, I did not know this, but apparently May 9th is the anniversary of Russia's victory over the Nazis. So, of course, drama queens that they are, Russia is claiming that the Ukrainians are Nazis, so they want to celebrate their second victory over the Nazis in Ukraine by May 9th. There's a couple possibilities. Putin could just lie and claim on May 9th that he's won. I think it might mean that Putin plans to bomb the bejesus because he's still got a lot of cruise missiles. He may try to level Kyiv, the capital, for all we know. Kharkiv. He may just go after all of their cities and destroy them. All of them. Who knows? Who knows? But that may be, and if he blows them all up by May 9th, he says the enemy has been defeated. The Nazis no longer, the Nazi military has been destroyed or the Nazi cities have been destroyed, whatever he says, and then he can claim victory. I don't know. But I think a lot of that is going to depend, not even I think, it's going to depend on how well the war is going and what Putin actually holds in terms of land in Ukraine. If he feels like he's now got the upper hand, then he would want to declare, the war's over in peace or whatever. If he doesn't feel like he's got the upper hand, he's going to keep fighting. And clearly Ukraine got the upper hand on this first part when he was going after, he wanted to take Kyiv and he lost, the capital. The second part, now that Putin is going after the east, this is the new part of the war, from Kharkiv. You can look at a map from Kharkiv in the northeast all the way down, with the Donbass, all the way down, actually Kharkiv all the way down to Mariupol. Look, maybe draw a line there and kind of go east. That's the whole area we're talking about. And, let's see. All right, guys, I'm going to call it quits on that. I will still hang out. We did an hour and 25 minutes. That was pretty long. Sorry for missing that question over there. But now we just sort of hang out for about 10 minutes and chat amongst ourselves. So, I will talk in another one about how I see it ending. I've done that before. Usually that question comes up almost every time, and I sort of wait a couple days because it ebbs and flows a little bit as we watch the things change. No, thank you guys. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to hang a couple minutes. Anybody wants to just hang and we can chat. I just won't do war chat. I'm trying to. Oh, I always use my French term, décontract. It's to decontract, to contract, to decontract, like a contract, uncontract. I don't know however we decontract, but it's to relax. But it's not relaxing. It's more, I look at it as exactly, that's why I like décontract. It's this like unwinding of the stress kind of thing. So now we're getting into other stuff. TikTok is always very wild. Yeah. No, I'm still getting more, my fave dessert. Anything chocolate is my fave dessert. And thank you for the origami. Slava Ukraini. Absolutely. They need a Slava Ukraini thing on TikTok, but I doubt they would do it. It's in TikTok. Decompress. Actually, decompress isn't a bad. Yeah, decompress might be a good comparison for that. You're right, for decontract. Yeah. Actually, that is a good comparison. Yeah, you're right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Joseph is throwing in a last minute question, but he did buy a super chat question. I'll be there. I have bed lag. Okay. That's okay. Sorry. Joseph is having a really long lag on his computer. So he did have one final question that got delayed. I apologize for this. So, did Russia claim they won the first phase of the war? Oh yeah. Russia totally claimed they won the first phase of the war. I forgot what they were claiming. They were saying, it was never our goal to conquer Kyiv. We wanted to deal the Nazis a tough blow, and we did. We blew up the Nazis across the country. And that was they're declaring it as they won. And again, it is a dictatorship. They control the media. They're trying to control the internet, a difficult thing to control. But from what we've heard, older people in the country get their news from the news. They don't get it from the internet. They get it from their TV and their radio. And that's all controlled, by the Russians. Younger people have access to the internet. Even if the Russians have blocked it, they know, give some love to the mods. Even this, décompressé. Right. Voilà. Right. Décompressé. Okay. Well, I would say, you're right, because décontracté, actually, you're right, because décontracté is more relaxed, but décompressé it's the action verb in essence, right? Yeah. Décontracté, c'est d'être décompressé. Après que tu es décompressé, tu es décontracté. No? I'm going to script my French here. I hope I didn't get that wrong. We're debating the language for French for basically to be relaxed and to the action verb for to relax. Décompressé. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. So Joseph was saying, Russia claims they won the first phase of the war, and they're lying. I mean, clearly Russia lost the first phase of the war. We already know Russia wanted to, by those first 3 days, they thought they were going to take over the capital, and they didn't. And it's been 40 days. They totally had to pull out around Kyiv. The question becomes whether they have to pull out, what happens to the east now. They think it's going to be a lot more difficult with what happens in the east. It's going to be a lot harder to fight against Russia. That is Baleen. That is Baleen behind me that I got in Alaska, of course. Where else? Well, not I guess. Well, no, Canada. You probably can't import it from Canada because it's a mammal, or marine mammals. So yeah, I got it. I used to work for the senator from Alaska. So Sasha is in her little bed, a little upset that her blanket isn't on her, but she's kind of taken it. Yes, no, I was getting advice on my French, but Nathan didn't sort of tell me if I was right about my difference between the two. Yeah, Sasha's being good. She's in her little bed. Décompresse. Okay, interesting. Yeah. No, I'm feeling bad. I think I got it wrong. No, thanks, guys. I'm glad to be doing. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Nathan's giving me. But thank you for. I saw you say thank you for the reports on TikTok. Thank you. Yeah, décompresse is the action. The one you'd say is décontracté is like unraveling an object. Oh, okay. But you'd say somebody. But I know il est très décontracté. You would say about somebody, but that means kind of informal, though, right? Right, like not wearing a tie or something like that. Yeah. So décompresse, sorry, yeah. I never actually knew décompressé. I don't even think I actually knew the word. I mean, I know the word, but I never used it. Although, honestly, we would say relax anyway. My friends would always say relax. But interesting. My languages are French, obviously, Spanish, Italian, and Greek. All of them were fluent at one time. All of them are rusty. French is still my best. My Spanish is still very good, too. But that's because they both were really good languages. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I keep checking in on the TikTok comments too. Thanks, guys. But my French and Spanish. Oh, thank you. I always love the sorting hat. My French and Spanish have always been my best, and I think because they're my best, they hang in there. I mean, I was always very fluent in French, and I really knew my Spanish. My Italian was very good, but my Italian is very much based on my Spanish, my French and Italian. Excuse me, my French and Spanish. I studied Italian pretty much on my own. Thank you for the TikTok. I taught myself Italian, really. I took like 2 classes in college afterwards, but I started teaching myself Italian when I was living in Paris because I went to Italy for a weekend and fell in love with Florence and in love with Italy. First time I'd ever been, and I was like, oh my God, what an amazing country. I love Italy. I love France too, but God, I love Italy. So yeah. So anyway, and then the Greek is because I was brought up speaking Greek, or not speaking, my family trying to make me learn Greek. And after studying it for years at church, and it was horrible, I finally went to Greece for 4 months and taught. I mean, I taught myself really. I mean, I took a year in college. Actually, okay. Can I really brag now? My senior year of college, I took French, Spanish, Italian, and Greek at the same time. And it was shockingly not different. It wasn't confusing. Now, mind you, I was 21 years old, so I'm sure you're better at languages at that age. But it wasn't confusing. Like it's weird. If you're speaking, it gets confusing. If you're sort of writing it, you have to get in the mindset of the language, and then you're okay. But sometimes you're in the mindset of one language. Like I'll speak French sometimes, and if I'm thinking Spanish, then it'll interfere. But I love languages though. Yeah. Any case, long story short, yeah. So I've got all 4 different, but if I go back to Greece, I get much better. You know, if I go back to Italy, I get way better. I went to Italy with the State Department way back in 2008, and we toured around Italy. Oh, nice. You said they've got a Greek background too. Toured around Italy doing talks in Italian with Italian students, college and then graduate students, and some journalists too, about the American elections and how we were using the internet. It was really fun. It's really fun. And I remember I went to one class in we were in Perugia. See, Perugia, chocolate. Had to be Perugia, yeah. And the professor was somebody who hated the internet. And I sort of explained my take on how Americans were using the internet. How at that time we were using it for blogging and all sorts of kind of neat things. And I explained how important I thought it was and how interesting. And the professor literally, I mean, all I was talking about was I wasn't saying anything about Italy. I was literally saying what we were doing in America. And the professor gets up there and he's like, non sono d'accordo. He's like, I disagree with everything you said. And I'm going, okay. I mean, oh my God, this guy was such a stick in the mud. Pissed off because I was saying the internet was pretty cool. Oh, we've got the crazy people are back. That's always nice. But yeah, like pissed off because I was saying that it was it just, anyway, it made me laugh. It made me laugh. I love Rome. God, I adore Rome. I mean, Italy in general, Italy, I'm told, can be a hard place to live because of the bureaucracy. It's funny. I had an American couple friends, one who joins in occasionally in our chats, but they had lived there for a long time. She wanted to stay, I think, forever. And Greek with Greece and Cyprus. And the husband was finding it a little harder to live there, I think, because he's American. They're both American, but she's from Argentina originally. And I think for her, it was a little bit easier to, live in Italy, being from born and raised in Argentina, than for him being born and raised in America. So I always wonder about, I adore Italy, but I don't know, could I retire there? Would it drive me crazy? Who knows? But God, I love it. Yeah, I know. There's very weird. We got some weird. Cyprus was lovely. I went to Cyprus, for about 2 weeks. Visited a friend, my friend Rodula, in Nicosia, who was my college friend, and I liked Cyprus a lot. It was fun. Yeah, neat place, neat people, and just fun. It was very interesting compared to Greece. It was just a very interesting country. I would almost say they almost struck me as more lighthearted than the Greeks in some way. For some reason, there's something a little more jovial. I don't know why. The language is funny to listen to because it's Greek, but it's different. And the pronunciation, the sh's and stuff, like a dog in Greek is skilo, and in Cyprus it's shilo, like sh. In Greek it's sk, skilo. Like Sasha's a little skilaki. She's a little dog. Whereas there it would be shilaki. I guess shilaki, but shilo. And it's the funniest thing to be shilo. Or what was it? Sika and paputsosika. Yeah. All right, I'm not going to give you more Greek words because there's probably 3 people who are understanding going, yes. I think, did you say Croatia or Crete? Oops. Croatia. No, and I'd love to go. My French friends, the French adore Croatia. I have never been to former Yugoslavia, any of those areas at all. I am going for sure, I'm going to go visit Albania because I've got a connection there with my ancestry, sort of our most famous ancestors, which is sort of our strongest family line as well, because they were this group in Greeks called Arvanites that spoke Albanian, an Albanian dialect. There's clearly a connection to Albania, and we know about my other branches too, but that's the most famous branch because he was involved in the revolution, and then a more recent relative was involved in the Greek government. But we know who the ancestor is and all this kind of stuff back to the 17. He was born in 1780, but it sort of stops with him, and we know his people are from a village that's named after the town they're all from in northern Greece. And this area in northern Greece is kind of Albanian Greek mix. So I want to go to Albania and really kind of meet people there, and sort of the Greek community there, and try to dig a little deeper into that vein of my family and see if we can find anything. It's not as easy for people who aren't Anglo to find their history. I don't know if it's English or Irish friends where they're like, oh yeah, we've got was it Ireland maybe, the church book going back to 1100 AD or something crazy, like going back 1,000 years. I'm like, oh my God, That would be awesome. But yeah, we don't have that. I'll go a couple more minutes and then I'm going to go. What else? But yeah, so I went back to the nose doc today to do a little checkup, and oh my God. I mean, they don't work, they have like a lidocaine, which is like what the dentist uses, lidocaine and Afrin. Afrin's like the thing you shouldn't take because it opens up your nose, but you can get addicted to it. So it's like that and lidocaine to make you not feel pain. Well, that failed. In any case, no, I had a thing, turbinates, whatever they're called, but they had to kind of go in there because I was having some symptoms that were really weird for 6 months. And basically I had a runny nose for 6 months, but I mean, a runny nose for 6 months. I'm thinking like on Grey's Anatomy, that would mean my brain was leaking into my nose. There actually was they did that on Grey's Anatomy. So I went in, he was like, no, your brain's fine, but these things in your nose are triggering. So they did this little mini surgery. I'm still a little nasal, but I went in today and they numbed it and they had to go in and you've got, basically you've got scabs and things inside there. And she goes, I can pull them out. Oh my God. Oh God. I mean, she might as well have pulled out my eyeballs through my nose. It was just like the most painful. If you had like those initial COVID, the initial COVID swab at the beginning when they had to go back in your nose to your sinus, that's what it felt like. But then she grabbed and pulled. Oh God, man, I was going to scream. I walked out of there and I was just kind of like, okay. I was a little woozy walking out of there. I mean, I really should have taken painkillers. They did not warn me what this is going to be like. Anyway, I won't go into any more detail, but oh my God. So anyway, how's everyone doing in Ukraine? Well, my friend Vlad's doing okay. They're in southwestern Ukraine. He's worried about his family because he's from Kharkiv, and Kharkiv is the one that they're really worried now. The Russians are, the Russians have been attacking nonstop. They've been bombing Kharkiv nonstop. It's the second largest city, northeastern Ukraine, 1.5 million people. But he's very worried because they're being warned that they think the Russians are going to try to occupy it in the next week or two. And they're very worried about that because obviously the Russians come in and they destroy everything and they kill everybody. So not good stuff. So, what else? Yeah, I may sign off shortly, guys. Ooh. Well, that was good. Yeah, that took a little bit. I had a retina tear and I had surgery in France. I am extremely nearsighted. That's exactly what it is. My prescription before was -10. And that's really nearsighted. So I had a retinal tear, like the retina teared and nasty. It's a scary thing because I always tell people because you don't know that you've got it because you don't really have nerves in the back of your eye. So your retina can rip. And you don't have a nerve, so it doesn't hurt, but you start to see things in your eye. You could see flashes of light. You could see snow. You could also get like floaters, but out of nowhere, you see a big floater. Anyway, it's considered a medical emergency. I told you guys I'd written about it on my blog after it happened. And two different people said, oh my God, I'm having symptoms like I've been having symptoms like that. They went to the doctor and they got back to me and told me, they said that my doctor said I actually had a tear. The problem is once your retina tears, you can go blind. I did not go blind, but you can go blind unless it's got to be fixed because it'll just keep pulling and once it starts to tear, it just keeps pulling apart. It's almost, I don't even know. I can't imagine like peeling an orange, but imagine once there's a rip that the skin just keeps coming off. So, I mean, the nasty thing is and again, I love this because it's not supposed to. I met somebody in France whose professor at school had created they use a laser. Talk about this freaky. It supposedly doesn't hurt though, but they use a laser and they go through the front of your eye. But again, it doesn't, lasers, right? Lasers, part of the beauty of them is you can focus it where you want the heat to be and there's no heat in front. So they go through your eye from like this distance, but it doesn't hurt. And it focuses just on the back and it's a micro laser and they literally laser a circle around the part that ripped. Because hopefully if it's a small enough part, like mine ripped, but I have a blind spot maybe here and it's this big, like I don't ever see it. So they laser around it, but it's not supposed to hurt. Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. And it was funny because I met this guy in France. He goes, no, my professor invented it. He said it doesn't hurt. I said, you need to go back and tell your professor because I got news for you. It hurt like hell. But yeah, that laser, it doesn't always hurt, but I absolutely, they need to give you Valium or something when they give you that laser. They ought to give you a painkiller or something because it ain't nothing. But yeah, retinal tears are very dangerous. And it's considered an emergency, which my doctor keeps reminding me, but you don't put it off. Last generation, I don't know. That's something different though. But I got a sclerobuckle too. I'm hoping. My eye's been actually hurting me. I got the sclerobuckle in 2009. My eye's been hurting me. Thank you for that on TikTok. I wasn't expecting more gifts on TikTok. Thank you. My right eye's been hurting me the last few days, but I don't know if it's because the surgery, the nasal surgery has been giving me a little sinus headache and it's hitting at night. Like it's hitting me now a little bit, but I also just had a whatever you call it, the over-the-counter painkiller. But I don't know if that's causing the eye pain, but the eye pain, I started getting worried about my buccal. Long, complicated thing if you haven't had retinal surgery, but they put this little buckle behind your eye that basically pushes your eye in so that it pushes the back of your eye to the retina so that it almost reattaches it in a way. And then they use, so imagine the retina tears. They push the back of your eye in, so now it's tight to the tear, and then they laser around it, and it holds it together forever. But this buckle stays permanently in the back of your eye, and after a while, sometimes it needs to be replaced. But if you had one for 40 years and it hasn't been replaced, I feel better already. Because the problem is you get the surgery, and then it can change your prescription. And I mean, like, I ended up getting, of all things, cataracts after of all the things I got, cataract surgery too. When I was 45, I had to have cataract surgery. I mean, like crazy. Thank you for the roses. Any case, it totally fixed my distance vision. I can't read close anymore, so I'm always using the glasses. But it was an amazing experience, though, because I can see. I mean, I hated having glasses because my glasses, I had to have glasses. Literally, I could only see things this far in front of my face. That's all. Everything else was blurry. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even watch TV. I couldn't look at the computer. I mean, I could see objects, but I've shown people before, I get the camera and make it blurry and say, that's what it looked like for me. So you'd see an object, you go, okay, that must be the TV, the black thing there, anyway. So yeah, so now I'm kind of happy I got the cataract surgery because at least I don't have to wear glasses. Woo-woo! And insurance paid for it, although it's American insurance. So I still paid $2,000 or $3,000 because this is America. So what do you do? Oh my. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. It's 8:45. Thank you. Oh, Sasha's up. Sasha, what do you think? All right, you know what? Hold on. We'll do another Sasha visit. I'm going to get her little carrot she likes. That's my bribe after I show Sasha to you guys. Let's get your carrot, and then you can meet the people, okay? All right. Exactly. You know how this works. I bribe you for your fame. All right. 1 second here. She gets a frozen carrot as her treat. Okay, can I pick you up? Come here. No, Sasha, come here. Come. Sasha, come here. Come on. Thank you. Come here. All right. She hates being picked up, so she gets a little annoyed when I do this every night with you guys. She's starting to learn, and she's like, okay, don't pick me up anymore. Here, look at the TikTokers. Sasha, over here. Oh, actually, here, I'm holding the carrot in front of the camera, so she'll look at the TikTokers. Oh, there we go. And now, hey, YouTubers? Sasha, wait, look. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, here. Sorry. I don't want to tease her anymore. There you go. And now she runs back. Wait. See? Now she runs back with her little to go eat the carrot on the carpet. God, she's adorable. All right, guys. Thank you so much. She's adorable. She's my, has me totally whipped, of course. My dog owns me. All right, guys. We will do tomorrow at 7 p.m. as usual. I'm still tempted to do an 8 p.m. Maybe Wednesday we'll do an 8 p.m. just to see. Because the funny part is when my TikTok froze and I had to come back in, all of a sudden we had 4,000 or 5,000 people. The other night, the crazy spammers are back. The other night, 8,000 people came in, and I was like, what the heck was that? So it's kind of interesting, the different times and stuff. Yeah, the crazy weirdo spammer is coming back to YouTube, so we're going to sign off. All right, TikTokers, thank you so much. Thank you for all your gifts. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time, U.S., that is Washington, D.C. time. Aloha. Thanks, guys. Boop. And then I'm doing you YouTubers in 1 second. Here we go. All right, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Woo-woo. Thanks, guys. That was good. Boom.